Welcome everyone to this listening part 3, listening for information analysis. Now I'm just here in the listening part 3 section of the CELPIP library. And before we get started, I do want to remind you that listening part 3 focuses more on CLB 4, 5, or 6. What does that mean? Well, that means that if you need to get CLB 4, 5, or 6, then you need to do better in this part, and you can do better in this part, okay? That's because this part will have more familiar and common dialogues, okay? More common and familiar vocabulary and expression. And so the questions and the answers will also be more familiar and easier for lower levels to understand, and much easier than parts 4, 5, or 6. Okay? So in this part, you need to try to get the most points that you can. Now, if you need to get CLB 7 or higher, then this part should be easier for you as well. And usually higher levels, they get almost everything correct in this part, okay? Because again, it's not so complicated like part 4, 5, or 6. And in those parts, it will be more difficult for higher levels as well. So that's what it means that part 3 is more focused on CLB 4 to 6, okay? Also, I want to remind you that we have this great listening part 3 tips and strategies video, okay? This video will give you more information about how you can listen effectively, how you can manage time effectively, what kind of information you should gather while you're listening, and how you can answer the questions more effectively. So, if you're interested in getting more tips and strategies, some of the tips and strategies that I will be using, then please watch that video, and I will leave a link in the description box to that video. Okay? So then, let's look at today's Volume 1 sample, Resume. Now, before we get started with that, I do want to give you some excellent listening tips. Okay. Some of the tips that I feel are great for lower levels and higher levels. Okay. We can both learn and focus on our listening more by following these tips. Number 1, listen to full sentences more than words. Okay. Lower levels, we still have a problem with focusing too much on words and not full sentences. When you focus too much on words, you miss ideas, and the answers get confusing because they put similar words or the same words. So remember, everyone, it's not a vocabulary test or a word test. It's an idea test, okay? Listening for ideas, not words. So, for that, listening to full sentences guarantees that we listen for ideas more than words, okay? Number 2, it's very important, everyone, to repeat as much information as you can, and repeat full sentences or full parts, not just words, okay? Now, this is very important for lower levels because lower levels, again, we still have a problem with remembering information or keeping information. So when we repeat ideas and when we repeat information, then we can remember more information. This is very important. The more you repeat, the more you remember. Now, what about taking notes? Well, taking notes is also a great idea. But from my experience, lower levels, we still have a problem with writing. And we still have a problem with writing notes and listening while we write. That's why for lower levels, it's more important to repeat information than write notes. But if you can, write a word or two as long as it doesn't keep you away from the listening, because that's the goal, listening to the audio. Okay? So let's remember that. Writing notes are also good. Higher levels, I think you should be able to write notes much faster. And if you can, then that's good. But even for higher levels, this part, we need to get everything correct. And the information and the questions are not so difficult. So I find that repeating it is also more important for you. Okay? Also, let's remember, we need to repeat the question as soon as we hear it. You listen to the question, you repeat it. That way you know what the question is while you read the answers. Now, for the answers, the most important tip that we can give for the answers, everyone, it's try to focus on the idea of each answer, not just each word. Because many times the answers, they put words that you heard, but they put all of them, not just one. And so we need to try and focus on full ideas, okay? And connect, associate the words. That's another important one, okay? So focus on the full idea of the answer, not just the word. Okay, and one more tip I can give about the answers, okay? And that one is about direct and indirect questions. Okay? Indirect questions can be difficult to understand. For example, how does the woman feel? Or how does the man feel? They never said exactly how they feel. So we have to imagine, or we have to think from the information that we heard, what was the feeling, or what another popular one is, what is the man or the woman, what are they going to do next, or what will they likely do next? That one is indirect, because we have to imagine from what we hear, or we have to assume what the answer will be. So keep in mind, okay, keep that in mind, that not every question is direct, meaning we hear exactly that information. There are indirect questions and direct questions. Okay? All right. So, listening part 3, it's similar to part 1 and 2, just in here, there's more information, and the questions are usually more about specific information that they spoke about. And that's what makes it a little bit more difficult. Okay? And we are doing test practice 1. So here we are. Okay, everyone. Now let's remember that we are going to be doing this listening together. I'm going to give you a chance to listen to the audio, and then I will show you the questions one by one with the answers, and then we will analyze it, okay? So let's start with the audio, okay? Here we go.
Listening for information. You will hear a conversation followed by 6 questions. Listen to each question. You will hear the question only once. Choose the best answer to each question.
Hey, Anika. You're home early today. Do you have a minute? I was hoping you could look at my resume. I've used it to apply for tons of jobs, but I haven't gotten a single response. I could really use your expert opinion.
Well, expert opinion might be an exaggeration. I'm no professional. But I have helped quite a few people in the past. Okay, so taking a quick look, you don't seem to be showing your strengths with this resume.
That makes sense. I know I have the qualifications, but it's been a long time since I've had to do a resume.
Well, my first suggestion is to make your resume stand out in some way. It may seem simple, but some color and an interesting font can be eye catching and entice someone to actually take a look at your resume. You'll also need to do more than just list your past jobs.
That's a great idea. I didn't even think of color and appearance. For content, I thought the whole point was to list the jobs I've held over the last 10 years, with a few details about my roles and responsibilities.
Well, these days, employers often hire people who can show the impact they've made in their companies. Since you want to highlight your leadership experience, you should definitely mention the sales and marketing seminars you conducted. Those boosted profits for your previous company 3 years in a row, right? That's a big deal.
Yes, good point. I hadn't thought of that. Any other advice?
Well, you may want to rearrange your resume a bit because it's very chronological. Although it's good to have an overview of what you've done over the years, you should briefly mention your professional skills first.
Do you mean things like project management, budgeting, and business negotiation?
Yes, exactly. Not everyone possesses those skills, so you should really put them at the top of your resume.
These are really useful suggestions. Thanks so much. I'm so glad I asked you.
Great. Just a few minor fixes and you'll be getting those phone calls you've been hoping for. Oh, before you go, just let me run inside the house and grab the book you lent me. It was a great read.
So now let's go to the questions, everyone. All right. Now, again, I'm going to be playing the questions one by one. And you have about 20 seconds between questions to answer them. So here we go.
Question 1.
What is probably true about the woman?
Question 2.
What is likely causing the man's problem?
Question 3.
What is true about the man?
Question 4.
What will the man's next step most likely be?
Question 5.
Why did the woman go into her house?
Question 6.
What was the woman's main suggestion?
Okay, then let's have a look at those answers. Let's analyze. I'm just going to get the script here. Question number 1. What is probably true about the woman? Very interesting conversation about writing your resume, right? So let's see. She's a career expert. She writes many resumes. She's a manager. People consider her advice valuable. Okay, well, I don't think she was a career expert. I don't think she writes many resumes. Didn't sound like she's a manager, but it sounded to me like the man wants her opinion because maybe her advice about resume writing is valuable, I think. Let's see. Hey Annika, you're home early today. Do you have a minute? I was hoping you could look at my resume. I've used it to apply for tons of jobs, but I haven't gotten a single response. I could really use your expert opinion. Okay, your expert opinion. And what does she say? Well, expert opinion might be an exaggeration, means too much, not real. I'm no professional, but I have helped quite a few people in the past. Okay, so taking a quick look, you don't seem to be showing your strengths, strong points. Okay, so she's helped people in the past, so that's what I was thinking, that people think her advice is valuable. Okay. What is likely causing the man's problem? His resume stands out. His resume lacks important information. He doesn't have enough experience. Employers don't need his skills. Well, I don't think it stands out because that means it would be good, but he needs help, so not stands out. Lacks, doesn't have. I think this could be the answer. Maybe he's missing some information. I'm not sure about experience, and I don't think it said employers don't need his skills. Let's read. So she already said, you don't seem to be showing strengths or strong points. That makes sense. I know I have the qualifications, but it's been a long time since I've had to do a resume. So he has qualifications, long time since he did a resume. Well, my first suggestion is to make your resume stand out. Make it stand out. It may seem simple, but some color and an interesting font can be eye-catching, very interesting, and entice, make people want someone to actually take a look at your resume. You'll also need to do more than just list your past jobs. Okay. That's a good idea. I didn't even think of color and appearance. For content, I thought the whole point was to list the jobs I've held over the last 10 years with a few details about my roles and responsibilities. Okay. Well, these days, employers often hire people who can show the impact they've made in their companies. Since you want to highlight your leadership experience, you should definitely mention the sales and marketing seminars you conducted. Those boosted or increased profits for your previous company 3 years in a row, right? That's a big deal. So, right. So it says here that maybe he's not showing strong points about him. So that's correct. And not that employers don't want his skills, okay? What about number 3? What is true about the man? He has mostly worked in business. He's not aware of what job he needs. He hadn't prepared his resume well enough. He's looking for the wrong job. It's not he's not aware of what job. Wasn't really clear if he's worked in business, but I'm thinking that he hadn't prepared his resume well enough is the answer because, well, he's asking for help and she's telling him he hasn't prepared it well enough. Okay, we'll look at more of that as we read. Let's read a little more actually. Yes, that's a good point. I hadn't thought of that any other advice. So see, he hadn't done it. He hadn't prepared it well enough. Well, you may want to rearrange your resume a bit because it's very chronological. Although it's good to have an overview of what you've done over the years, you should briefly mention your professional skills first. So, more about professional skills. Do you mean things like project management, budgeting, and business negotiation? So, he's done more than just business. Yes, exactly. Not everyone possesses those skills, so you really should put them at the top of your resume. Okay. Okay, these are really useful suggestions. Thanks so much. I'm so glad I asked you. Okay, so it looks like that is correct. He hadn't prepared well. What about number 4? What will the man's next step most likely be? He'll apply for more exact jobs. He'll avoid writing his resume. He'll ask the woman to write his resume. He'll add more specific details. Well, I think he's going to add more information, like professional skills, right? And what about number 5? Why did the woman go into her house? To get a business book, to file something for the man, to retrieve something she forgot, to attach a book to her resume. Think, great, just a few minor fixes and you'll be getting those phone calls you've been hoping for. Oh, before you go, just let me run inside the house and grab the book you lent me. It was a great read. Okay, so looks like uh, she went inside the house to grab the book you lent me. So that would be retrieve, to get. Retrieve means get something, to retrieve something she forgot. And number 6, what was the woman's main suggestion? So overall, her main suggestion: to cater a resume to your strengths, to focus on your achievements, to include extraordinary abilities, to limit unnecessary information. Well, I think not achievements, not extraordinary, and not unnecessary. In general, to cater means to make it, or to make it clearly, to cater a resume to your strengths, to your overall. It was more about his strong points, strengths. Okay. And again, number 1 was, yeah, consider her advice more valuable. And his resume, yes, it lacks important information, was the general view. So, how did you do, everyone? Did you get 6 from 6? Well, that was very interesting. Very interesting. And what can we do if we didn't get 6 from 6? Well, the first thing that we could do is, for sure, we could review our answers. Review our answers. We need to try and understand why the answer is the answer. Very important. But it's also going to be important to understand why the answer is not the answer. That's also very, very good. That would really help our comprehension, okay? Secondly, let's review the script. Everyone, reviewing the script like I just did. It's a great way for us to understand expression. I would read all of it to understand the expression, to make sure that we understand how ideas are expressed, to understand the vocabulary. It's very good way to build our listening. Okay, and for that, everyone, I will be leaving a link in the description box to our sample question, okay, our sample lesson. And you can see that this lesson has 6 sections. All right. And it's very important to review them all. We have the video analysis, which is the one that we are watching right now. Okay. And then we have vocabulary building for this section. Okay. Great vocabulary. Look at all these vocabulary words: indifferent, to not care; absence, to not be there. Great list, which gives you the word, the basic meanings, synonyms, antonyms. Okay. Very good. And then after you study that, then we have some sentences down here where you need to complete the sentence by putting one word from the vocabulary. Great exercise, everyone, for building your vocabulary. Excellent. And then we have this comprehension building. Okay, comprehension building. Now, this one is also a great exercise for listening. We listen to one sentence. Okay, let's listen to it.
Nowadays, there are more benefits for working parents.
So after you listen to that sentence, you need to decide which sentence, A or B, has the same meaning as the one you heard. Great for building comprehension for listening, everyone. And it gets more difficult as we go. For example, number 6, which sentence has the same meaning? A, B, neither A nor B, or both A and B. This exercise, I feel, is great for helping lower levels improve their listening comprehension skills. Great exercise. Okay. And then down here we have following dialogue. Following dialogue is also an excellent exercise. Okay. We listen to the audio, and as we listen, we complete the dialogue with a word that we hear. Okay? What is the word that we hear? And we complete the dialogue with that word. Great for improving your listening comprehension skills and listening skills. Okay? And then we have here test practice number 1, which is the one we will analyze now. And then test practice number 2. Test practice number 2 is version 2 of this exam. And after you complete this listening analysis, then you should do that one on your own to review and practice what you learned. Also, everyone, let's not forget about CELPIP Library. CELPIP Library has over 60 examples of listening part 3 and also version 2s, which is great, everyone, to practice part 3. So with discount code CELPIP79, again, discount code CELPIP79, you can get a 3-month subscription of CELPIP Library for only $10.99. That's a great deal, everyone, and I strongly recommend it. Let's not forget, practice makes perfect.